Hello and welcome in Friday night with me, Jason Line, Mr. Merca, the Beard Truth. I want to thank you guys for joining in, for fighting through everything that's going on to come here and see the beard and join in on these discussions where we can learn and we can discuss what is important with everything. So thank you all for joining in. Cheryl, welcome. I'm going to give it a couple seconds, allow some people to join in. If you guys are joining on Periscope, thank you for joining in on Periscope. If you guys are joining in on YouTube, thank you guys. The audience is brand new, as is the stream, so it's nice to see that growth. Thank you so much for the invited followers and sharing this out on Twitter. I do appreciate that, Cheryl. You are amazing. What's going on, Rainbows? Brian, welcome in. The man that was giving me crap for missing Tuesday. How's it going? Hope everything's well with you. Oh yeah, that eggbot is quite flirty. Does it seem like last week it was kind of a slow week a little bit? It was a little bit of a fight to get good information coming out. Miss K, welcome. And then this week it just seems like they just unloaded everything. Really just came out with the fire hoses, just drenching the world with all sorts of news. I'm taking tonight, Friday night foreign relations is going to be kind of the theme. We're going to be talking a little bit about South Africa. We'll get into a little bit of the history of this, see what side is really lying, which side is being truthful. I am a veteran. I'm no longer military, no longer active. We're going to talk a little bit about North Korea. So Mike Pompeo no longer going there next week. So we'll give a quick recap on what's going on over there and how everything's going out. Sin Soaked, welcome. We will talk about Venezuela. Venezuela has been managing to prop itself back up into the news, and that's always exciting to see what they're doing, to see what's going on down there in the land of eating stray cats and dogs. Is the world getting better? Is the government learning from its actions? Of course not, and we will get much further into that discussion later. But I think what I really want to start with, hold on, I should share this out. So I hope everyone's been doing well. I hope that tonight, Friday night, you guys are enjoying this and it's going to be good. Never say no longer. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Friday night, the beginning of your weekend, and you're joining me, Tom Chatelet, Mr. Pumpkin Spice Man himself. I'm not letting you live down that name. I may have given you that name, but it's not one that you are going to be losing anytime soon. So welcome in, man. How you been? Hope all has been well with you as well. So I want to first start off with do you guys want to go South Africa first, or do you guys want to go Venezuela? Both of those are thought-provoking ideas. Both of those involve economics and the government not knowing how to do it. That's right. That's Mr. Pumpkin Spice Man. South Africa. All right, South Africa it is. So in South Africa, I lost my page. That's fantastic. The one I was going to tell you guys we were going to get into. So last February, this last February was when news started breaking out on this. So this isn't something that just started off today. It's something that the American media has been kind of pushing off, not really paying attention to very much. You've had a couple conservative sites coming out with information, but nothing in the mainstream. So back in February, they started the grounds. Left-wing extremist groups said, look, 72% of our farmlands are being owned by white people, and that is horrible. What we need to do is we need to build up our people, and our people are not the whites. Our people are the people that were oppressed by the whites, and so we need to have reparations essentially. And so the idea was that they were going to actually amend their constitution. They're also one of the foreign states or foreign nations that has a constitution. Thank you for the invite. And so they decided, all right, we're going to amend the constitution and be able to start taking land from people, and without providing anything in return. So they're not going to compensate from those that they've taken this land from. There have been times in which the farmers who owned this land said, I'm not giving up my land. This was land that I paid for through honest transactions. And so I'm not giving up my land. There have been instances where farmers have been killed over this. Families have been killed or separated and destroyed. But it's that ideology in which you allow a democracy, you allow others to decide on how you're on the rights of another. Is the big point that should be screaming to us. A lot of people are focusing on the skin color. A lot of people are focusing on it being a left wing group that's pushing this, and those sure, focus on those things, right? It is mostly white people that are being affected. Like I said, 72% of the farmers there are white, so they're going to be getting the biggest blow from this. But it's about they want to be able to dictate and control this. One of the big parts of this is their president actually said, look, if you have more than 25,000 acres, you don't need that much. You don't have a necessity in order to obtain all of that land. And so therefore we're going to come in and take either, I've seen conflicting reports, either we're going to take everything in excess of 25,000. They get to kind of decide on which part of the land they get to take, or they're going to take it all. This has caused a large amount of hysteria from the farmers. So the farmers, they can't sell it because nobody wants to buy into a market where it's extremely volatile, where you may pay for something right now and the government may come in and take it from you later. So there's no point in somebody investing in the future there. And the lands that have been taken are being ran by people that haven't ran farmland before. And so growing agriculture, growing crops is not something you pick up overnight. Hey, welcome in, Howard. Thank you for joining. Glad you could join on. If you got any followers, man, I would appreciate the share on YouTube. Thank you. So the entire market, they're destroying the market first off by trying to take veterans of the agriculture market and taking them out and replacing with people they see more fit or people that they think will be more fair with the crops of this. And that's just stupid, right? The mechanic is costing us too much. The mechanic's not doing exactly the way that we want to. So we're going to take this plumber and we're going to pop him in and he's going to fix your cars. Anybody want to go and use that plumber to fix their cars? I don't think so, right? There's a chance that, there's enough pieces there to make it work, but overall, you're not going to be in the best way possible. Marine Mom, welcome in. So it's that ideology that they're running off of, and they're trying to say, in the past, years ago, decades ago, even borderline centuries ago, these lands were stolen from us, and so now we're just coming back to take it back. That's disgusting. They're amending their constitution and they're doing what they want to do. I feel horrible for the people that are having their private property, having their property being taken from them by the force of the state. But there's not much that we can do from here in America. We can point it out on the world stage, and I think that's all that we should be doing. I'm sorry, I got off on the train of thought a little bit, and we'll go back down the further way. When it comes to that entire situation, so they're replacing it with people that they find more important, or people that will be more better, more gooder, more goodest for that field. So they're destroying it that way. They are causing people to want to get out of the market. People are fleeing their lands. People are just getting out of it because they can't sell it because the market is too volatile. There's too much of a question on how long will this land be able to be owned by the next owner. So nobody's buying into it. So you're destroying the market that way. The people that they're replacing it with are not nearly as efficient or effective at providing these crops to the people. So they're just in every capacity. Whenever you give the state the sole authority in order to control these things, i.e. socialism, it's not going to work out in the best interest of the workers or the producers, but it's also not going to be the best for the consumers. Mark my words, if this goes through, if this continues on, we will see South Africa say we are in a health crisis. We are starving. We don't have enough food, and we need people to import all of their foods. And they're putting themselves into the situation. They're shooting their foot, and then wondering why they're hobbling along. It's going to be absolutely devastating for them. And the thing that I am the concern that really made me frustrated. I believe it was this morning. President Trump actually tweeted to this regards, and he said, "Look, we're going to have Mike Pompeo look into the situation." I don't want Mike Pompeo looking into this situation. I don't want any of the U.S. people going of the White House administration, of government influence, going and looking into the situation. I don't want America to think that it can be the helicopter parent, fly in, fix the day, and have people go in the ways that we see fit. You lead by example, not by force. And that's one thing that I do fear. I do fear that we're going to say it is a horrible situation there, therefore we're going to come in and save this. So the comment was, we just can't stay neutral all the time. I agree that we can't stay neutral all the time, but when it comes to the affairs of a democracy, you let them shoot themselves in the foot. You don't come in and save the day. You don't save them from the responsibility of the choices that they make. And so we can have a discussion on, like, say, for what happened in Syria. If there's a chemical attack against the people, there's something that we can do, and we can actually vote on it with Congress, and we can actually make a declaration of, hey, this is what we're going to do in accordance with the Geneva Convention, and we can work in that manner, right? But when it comes to this nation is hurting itself, when we want our government to take a stance on something, they have the actions of the government of the offending country. When we want your government to stay the hell out of it, you can bet we go, we just can't stay neutral all the time. Gotcha. It's not in America's interest to go get involved. I understand the atrocities that happen, but if we just say there's atrocities happening in this country, that country, this other country, right? America is going to be spread so thin. That's going to be a problem for America's interest, right? That makes us more susceptible to an attack. That makes it where more countries are relying upon us. It's just not in our interest. Exactly. Bad things happen everywhere. And this is one of those instances. If we get Mike Pompeo involved and he determines, hey, we need to go and actually have a conflict, there's no end to that, right? We can't beat another country into submission and say they're going to accept our republic, not a democracy, but our republic, and go in that manner and actually respect the human rights of others and respect private property and everything else. We have to understand there has to be a quantifiable, objective standard of going into something. And sad to say, when you're running against a tyrannical democracy like what they have, because of the far left extremist groups there that are proposing this, we won't have that. You can't change the hearts and minds of others by getting into an armed conflict. This has been one of the issues we're seeing with Afghanistan and with Iraq. We're in there saving the day essentially, but we're not. There's no end in sight. There's no way of fixing this. There isn't any oil there for us, so we're letting them do what they want. That's funny. Stefan, welcome in, man. It's and they're practicing racism to its fullest definition. Yeah, I know that you had hopped in a little bit after I had made the comment, Howard. Yes, it's 72% of the farm owners there in South Africa are white, and so predominantly you're going to get hit with that. It is also it's not just the white population there that is decrying against this action of their government. There are also plenty of blacks saying, look, we're doing this to our own detriment. We're gonna destroy everything what I had labeled already or specified out, as well as they're saying, look, it's their property. They got it legally, and it's the way that they're doing it. And so it's a horrible catastrophe that they're doing, but they're doing it to themselves. And at the end of the day, it's not America's interest to get involved. Let them shoot themselves in the foot. Thank you, Brian, for inviting your followers. So that's the gist of it there. Of course, Trump says something and the media tries to spin it up the other way. The president of South Africa has come out. The president of South Africa came out and said, look, he's trying to portray this in a negative way. He's trying to say it's only against whites. And like I specified, it's not only against whites, but it's mostly against whites. The view is to take away things that aren't rightfully theirs because even though they had purchased it legally, even though the person that purchased it purchased it legally, and everything down along the way, eventually it came to where it was stolen lands. That's one of the horrible parts of South Africa and a lot of other countries, is that at one point the white people, the white culture, came in and took lands and tried to build things up and did what some European nations have done in the past. And so they're focusing on that, and they're saying we have to make it right today, and that is by taking away reparation, or by providing reparations to our people and taking that away from those who took it from us wrongfully. But yeah, so that South Africa conversation, try to not just focus on what the media is saying today. They're spun up because President Trump said something, and so they have to go against this, right? We know that there is a Trump derangement syndrome within the media. They've got to spin everything in a negative way. If Trump says it's positive, they say it's negative. If Trump says it's negative, they're going to say it's positive. Another frame of reference for this was there was actually a Nazi guard that was wanted in Germany. He never went there, and he had been here for many years. I believe he was 95 years old. Trump deported him. I don't think he's really a cause for concern why you would deport him right now. But you had the left coming out and actually defending a legit Nazi, a tower guard within the Nazi internment camps, coming out and defending him and saying, "Look, it's so disgusting that Trump would go after Nazis. Like, it's just mind-blowing," right? They have to find a way to flip it and make it look worse than what it really is. So it is that level of derangement within our American media. It needs to stop, but that's why alternative media is actually growing, right? Alternative news sources is growing in this country because the mainstream is definitely the derangement is palpable at this point. While we're talking about derangement, while we're talking about hysteria and lunacy, Venezuela. We've been speaking about that in the past and how horrible it is in Venezuela because of the actions of their country, right? They make these big, giant changes to their economy, and they say, look, we're going to actually function properly. They didn't know how to maintain. They didn't know how to properly allocate the resources, the money, the finances that were coming from it back into it in order to keep it going. It's rapidly was declining. Now it's not even really an available source of, and because of all the inflation and everything else that their government has helped build in, they're now led to today where a toilet paper roll costs 2,600,000 bolivars. So the amount of bills that it takes in order to make the toilet paper, you might as well just use the toilet paper itself. They are not in any by Alan Dershowitz, a liberal, that's been brought up by conservatives, that's been brought up by Republicans, that's been brought up by Trump's lawyers, right? That they will not get him under oath because once you get somebody under oath, it's basically a guaranteed perjury trap. Right? You get somebody to say something different. You run them into a wall a bunch of times, and you try to fight and get them to change up something. It's that right there is what you look for whenever you have somebody under oath. That's why it's smart that President Trump, whether he's innocent or not, whether he's innocent or guilty, it's smart to not put him under oath. Allow the investigation to go on, but don't put him under oath and make it an easier claim in order to take him out. But the idea that Bill Clinton lying under oath should not have been impeached, that's really self-explanatory. If you believe that your president of the United States should be able to go under oath and lie under oath, and you think that that's not an impeachable offense, that's fine. Have your lack of objectivity, have your lack of principles, have your lack of convictions on what a president should be doing while under oath, and do as you please. No, I continue. No, what has really moved the needle on this is that Trump's constant cheap gangster rhetoric and flat out unwillingness. For example, it was utterly inappropriate for the President of the United States to comment during Paul Manafort's trial, including while the jury was out. It undermines the rule of law, run down the Department of Justice, buying into wild and discredited conspiracy theories about how everyone in the government is out to get him and his associates. Susie Q, welcome. So it's just amazing the way that this is going. This article is filth. I agree with you. It is. It's amazing the way that this is going. Right. It's inappropriate for President Trump to comment during Paul Manafort's trial, including while the jury was out. I think that there is some merit to that point. Right. It is inappropriate for the President of the United States to influence an election, or not. It's also for him to influence an election, but to influence a trial in that manner, it's not the greatest of things. But when it comes to the Department of Justice, for him calling them out, that is something that he should be, right? That is something that the President of the United States could be doing and should be doing, right? Because the Department of Justice is a department under him. It is within the executive branch. And so if it is not acting in accordance with the way he wants to, he does have some say in this, and he does have some control in this. He can undermine him, him speaking specifically about Jeff Sessions, if he sees fit. That is well within his authority, and somebody to try to say, oh, it's just horrible that he's doing it, doesn't understand the way that our republic is structured. Buying into wild and discredited conspiracy theories about how everyone in the government is out to get him and his associates. So that part, this has been documented, even looking at some of the investigations, specifically even the Mueller investigation, or looking at Mueller investigation. This is perfect. How everyone in the government is out to get him and his associates. So the Mueller investigation was created to go after Trump and Russia collusion from the 2016 campaign. And anything else. Don't forget the anything else. Anything else in the second scope. So it's the very narrow scope, and then it's anything else. Anything else that you can find Mueller, go ahead, find it. Go ahead, slam them. Do whatever you got to do. So what do? We find Manafort's guilty of tax evasion. He's guilty of laundering money. He's guilty of this, that, and the other from 2012 to 2014. Slam him shut. Throw him in the cage. Get rid of him. But no. The government's not out to get Trump and his associates. That's not it. That's not it at all, right? No, of course not. So it's partisanship there. It was outrageous for any president, much less one under investigation, to publicly go out of his way to call John Dean a rat for testing accurately about Richard Nixon's crimes. Trump's pardons to date, given political allies or based on personal connections outside of the normal procedures other presidents have used, were already an abuse of power. So it's not an abuse of power for you to act in the way that you want to, whenever you're acting within the constraints of the Constitution, right? So that was one of the things. There was always a fear when it came to actually adding the ability for a president to have the sole authority to pardon individuals of federal crimes. That was something that was talked about during the inaction of our federal government. That was a big, huge discussion. Many people dissented on that idea, but they finally came to, and they just said that's what they were going to impart, right? The executive branch, and specifically the President of the United States, would have that sole authority. And so it's not an abuse of power for him to do that. But what he said was the political allies, or based on personal connections outside of normal procedures that other presidents have used. So because other presidents haven't worked in this way, it's an abuse of power. Because political allies, because somebody is a Republican and he's a Republican, it's a political ally. Therefore, it's somehow an abuse of power, right? There's just not that much knowledge to it. When we look at the people that have been pardoned, welcome in, Colleen. When we look at the people that have been pardoned, it's some of the people have not been the greatest of picks, in my opinion. Some of the people were, posthumous. Some of those were people that were that have been long dead and gone, right? There was the boxer male. I apologize for forgetting his name. Let me know if you guys can remember his name. But he was pardoned posthumously. He's dead for 60 years, 70 years or something like that. But he pardoned his crimes that were wrongfully placed on him. So that I don't see that as an abuse of power. But it was always right. This is somebody that's like, everything he does is just horrible. Discussing a pardon for Manafort with his personal attorneys and then making sure the conversation wound up in the media is an abuse as well, not to mention a form of obstruction of justice. Because the way to get somebody for damaging information about the president is to stay silent, is to offer or hint at future clemency and not to give one now. So what he's doing, right, is he's trying to portray this. And I think it would be wrong for President Trump to pardon Manafort on this instance because if we look at the hung jury, the jury that was hung up on this, that didn't want to give the guilty verdict, there was one of the jurors went on Fox News, I believe it was, and she had mentioned that it was just one juror that was, I don't think there's enough there. I have a shadow of a doubt. Therefore, I'm not going to give the guilty charge. One person on those 10 charges. And so it was almost clear that he had violated the law in that manner. I don't think that there's really and these were all, some of those were all Trump supporters. So it's not a matter of partisanship. It's a matter of what was actually being portrayed out to them. So I don't think that the pardon would have been a right decision, but making sure that the conversation wound up in the media is an abuse as well. Well, if President Trump says it, I'm sorry to say it, right? If President Trump says something about the chicken, we're going to find out about the chicken. The media is focused. They're hyper-focused on everything that President Trump does. And so all he has to do is say something. That's going to get leaked out to the media. The media is going to blow it up. I understand one doesn't need to be charged yet to be pardoned, but as a matter of principle. Ooh, I missed your first comment. What if you pardoned Hillary and Comey too? No, don't do it. That's not his fault. It's not his fault. Exactly. But, we got to blame him for that. Or his constant complaint about Attorney General Jeff Sessions recusing himself from the Russia investigation. He has every right to complain about it. I don't think it's warranted. I stand against it, right? I don't think it's smart for him to continually go out and say this just because there's not much that he would have done. Pardon Pete Rose. It really was a really big non-issue. But just going through the rest of this article, it's just right along the same way. He's just going, look at this small little point. Let me just ignore all of this and let me ignore the facts of the situation. Let me ignore the context of it. And let me just go off on my my ridiculous claims and my hysteria. It's when you have arguments like that from the Bloomberg opinion piece. Who was this person again? This was Jonathan Bernstein. When you have an argument like that, it just makes you look weak. And I know that if this is your confirmation bias speaking and you think that, if you don't like Trump and you think he should be impeached, right? This is an article full of gold. It's an article full of gold. But from an objective point of view, it's not worth anything at all. Evening, Free Spirit Press. Thank you for joining in. I apologize. I probably already missed you. I was reading an article now. I'm sorry. So speaking along the lines of impeachment, President Trump actually made a comment about what would happen if he got impeached. And he said along the lines of the stock market would crash and everybody would be very poor. And there's many views out there on as to if there's merit to that discussion, because he came out of the presidency, if he was impeached, then the economy would inherently crash. I don't think that would happen. It would be certainly an interesting situation to see how Mike Pence would rule. But the left now loves Mike Pence. No, of course not. They're going to go to impeach him. They'll find anything and everything. But it's just weird. What do you think would happen if Trump got impeached? Honestly, what would happen if President Trump got impeached? So I believe that would be really the how's it going, Kim? When it came to if President Trump was impeached, I believe that there would be a revolution in this country. I believe that there would be a literal civil war in this country. No, they haven't thought any of this through. You're absolutely right, PMS. Because so many people would be outraged, and that would cause literal riots from the right. And just having that entire flip, right? Having that entire flip of the world, right? So right now, what happens when the right is outraged? What happens when the right is disgusted, right? We go to the media, we go to these different sources, we come to alternative media, and we discuss things and we talk about how egregious this is. But if something were like President Trump was impeached, I don't think that people would want to just talk about it. If they impeach Trump, who do you think would be the next CEO? It would be Vice President Mike Pence. I don't know who takes screenshots, but that's fine. It's having that, getting the people riled up and angry beyond belief would cause an actual civil war, right? When you would see normal lefty protest, I bet that there would be plenty of people out there on the right that would come out. It would start off small, right? You'd see violent conflicts. You would see the police getting involved. You would see an actual you would be able to literally look out your door essentially, and and you would see the civility in this country destroyed. Do you think Paint will maintain the Trump narrative? Mike Pence? Did you mean Pence? I don't think Pence would govern in the same way that Trump has. No. But you would be able to see the civility in this country fall apart. You would be seeing protests. You'd be seeing riots. You would be seeing death and destruction across this country. And it would start small as tit for tat, and you would see it grow. You'd see it grow to where eventually it would basically be borderline, like you come out and you have something that's pro-right or you have something that's pro-left and you get assaulted, you get hit. I don't think it would be too far off to think that we could mean that way. No, you're fine. And I think that would genuinely be a possibility, right? We've talked in the past about us already being in a civil war of ideologies, of views. And it still wouldn't be as bad if we impeach a liberal. No, it wouldn't. The civil war of ideas in this country, and we already know that the left has accepted Antifa, and the right has still denounced the alt-right, which is kind of weird. So the viewed as the right side of the political spectrum has been denounced by the right. The left accepted Antifa as a whole. And that's causing more conflicts. That's causing more issues as Antifa gets more involved. It's just a larger detriment to everything. What's going on, Hermit? 0 out of 10 would trust Pence to watch my kids. What is your take on the reason for the Civil War? The fact that that's a multifaceted issue. I think one issue is that the federal government has gotten involved with the education. So they've been involved for a long time. The Board of Education, specifically in the government, came around in the 80s. And that was the start of the detriment of our education as a whole. So we lost civility, we lost civics courses, we've lost constitutional courses, we lost rights courses teaching about human rights. They focused on attacking the right wing, viewed as the right wing ideologies. They don't actually cover the left wing ideologies, right? They don't cover socialism. They don't cover communism, right? So when we look at that and we have these kids coming out of high school and coming out of college and they're seeing communism or socialism as not a negative thing anymore, where we're seeing people come out and say, I don't get why this is such a slur. They're coming in and they're advocating for this now. Now, why would the government allow this? Why would the government not try to keep socialism and communism as a negative? Do you think it's because that would be in the pursuance of what the government essentially wants to? Treat the government as an entity, right? Treat it as you going to work each day. You go to work each day You go in, you sit down at your desk and you start doing work. Do you want to do enough work to where you become irreplaceable, or do you want to do enough work to where they're likely to get rid of you? Right? You want to be irreplaceable, you want to do your job, you want to get the satisfaction, and you want the people to had you're talking about the first Civil War. I can get there. I can go there as well. But let me just finish out this thought because I think it's really a really important idea. And so the government wants to be irreplaceable. They want to be important. And oh no, I'm right there with you, Herman. I'm right there with you on that. And yeah, I'll get into that TPL. And so the government says, look, we're going to keep this away, right? Don't learn about Pol Pot. Don't learn about Mao. Don't learn about even the Korean War. The Korean War, where a communistic North Korea was taking over South Korea, right? That's something that's being lost to the education of today. Because we don't want to focus on what happens when the government gets too big, because they're advocating themselves to make it bigger. This is why the union decision from the Supreme Court a couple weeks ago, or maybe even 2 months ago now, that was such a big and important decision, was because we took away funding for the unions who have been able to prop up Democratic candidates, who have been advocating for a growth within the political, within the government, right? So taking that big hit was a huge monumental hit, and you can see it because of the way that they were by the response. And so the education system is a huge part of this, right? The unions are a huge part of this, and everything else. And so it's that ideology of not having people being educated, but instead being indoctrinated. That's what's causing the Civil War of today. Now, the Civil War of past, there are many things that were involved with why we had the first Civil War. There was people that were there for slavery reasons. There were people there for state sovereignty. And it's always being mixed up as to which one was the more prevalent one. It was always mixed up as to, yeah, you're exactly right, Susie. It's always getting mixed up as to which one was the more important one. Was it the state sovereignty? Was it the slavery one? It's getting mixed up on what General Lee was about. General Lee was somebody who fought for the South, fought for the Confederate, but he was not necessarily a super strong slave person, right? He wasn't advocating for slavery. He was in private. He was an abolitionist. He didn't want that to continue on. The reason why he fought for the Confederates was because in those days, right, when this nation was first being formed, when we had 13 states, they were viewed as 13 nations. And so you fought for your nation. You didn't fight for the side in which you believed in. And so that was also another huge thing. The General Lee. Did I say General Lee? I messed that up, but that's fine. Herman's got some good points in here too. There were free blacks fighting in the Confederacy against federal authority. Yep. We were a confederation of nation states. Exactly. So it was all about the states being sovereign for a lot of people. And it was about the countries having their own power and not forfeiting or not delegating more power to the federal government. Do you believe that we should be responsible for paying the past debt? No. Now the State Department ships weapons to ISIS without our consent. Yeah, no, and the grotesqueness of what this federal government is doing and has done is just disgusting. We were a republic of states, exactly. And you know, for people, there are plenty of people that don't believe that because they never learned about this. But you guys all remember when the Declaration of Independence was created, right? July 2nd, 1776. It was finally printed July 4th, 1776. And I believe it was signed August 3rd, 1776. Do you know when the Constitution was ratified? It wasn't until 1789. That means that we had 13 years, 3 years without a federal government in which we had 13 sovereign nations being able to survive and be okay. Al Gore was there. And we had that. And that was fully was the Constitution in contract with Britain? No, the Declaration of Independence was a declaration of saying we no longer are under the sovereignty or under the control of the motherland of Britain and everything else. 13 years later, it was the only time in which we had a document that was created through democracy in this country, and that was the Constitution. And that was basically to enact a federal government in order to have certain powers delegated to them from the states. And so it's very important, right? This is a compact. A compact is two or more states that come together in an agreement. Another one shot himself in the head 3 months ago because we were sold a lie. I'm missing the context of that. I'm sorry. We were still at war until 1783. Yeah, the conflicts were yeah. And this wasn't. Here's another fun fact that a lot of people didn't know, right? Was that our angst, our anger, our resentment to the motherland, to the UK, to the king, started back in 1720s. I think it was Edison. No, it's not Edison. Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was very young at that time, and Benjamin Franklin, he was a young teen in the 20s when this all started. And so he was kind of the old and wise individual when it came to actually declaring the independence. He was one of our great founding fathers because he had all that information firsthand to him, as opposed to some of the others like Thomas Jefferson, where he wrote the Declaration of Independence. I think he was like 17 or 18 years old. And he was a young man, but you can read his writings and you can see just how eloquent, how smart, how informed this man was. And it's beautiful to see that. And now we look at people that are 20, 22, 25 years old in our nation today that I couldn't trust them to drive a stick shift. I couldn't trust them to get a job. I couldn't trust them to apply themselves in life in general. But yet you had young men in their teens willing to be selfless and to provide something not only to themselves, but to provide something to the future of their nation and to provide them with the present of liberty, of freedom, of a system where the power is more at the individual than at the top tier, right? So the power of the authority is supposed to be on the individual, which then goes to the state, which then goes to the federal government. And that is not how we are anymore. I could not trust them to make me a glass of water. They would boil it. Franklin was a career politician. I'm not sure. But I know George W. Bush, pardon me. Let me just snap back and snap forward 250 years. George Washington was one of those principled guys that said, look, I served 2 years. I'm not going to go on. And the entire country was in shock. Individual rights are greater than opinion. Absolutely 100%. And that's I'm so ashamed to look at our America today. The other George W. Yeah. I'm so ashamed to look at America today and think about what our founding fathers would say if they were here. Do you know what document was the contract? I can't remember. The compact? The compact was the Constitution, right? And so the compact or the contract was the Constitution, and then the Bill of Rights, right? A lot of people were upset and angry over the Bill of Rights not being in there, and then they added that in there. Because people said, look, you can have as small of a government as you want, But if we don't have these rights, these inalienable rights that are to be protected, we don't want to be a part of this. The contract of promising the payment of debt. What you talking about, Willis? I will look into that. I'll figure out that. I think that's a really vague way of looking at things. And so I'm not certain on that answer on that. I appreciate you joining in, Hermit, by the way. I know that you are the lone sole person on YouTube right now. As you know, this is a brand new feed, so I'm glad that you have joined us. The debt for the original 13 colonies. I believe that was within the Constitution. They have excerpts that have been since lined out because it's no longer applicable. My assumption. I'm used to being alone. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to build it up. I'm trying to get people from Facebook world. So a little history for you. I was on Facebook Live. I had 300 people on the page and everything else. I was growing there, and Facebook started cutting out on me during the middle of videos. They would cut me out, and so I was like, "F you, Facebook." Moved over here to the hence the Hermit. Moved over here to YouTube world, and that was just merely last week, so it's growing. Marine Mom, welcome. I just do not trust people anymore. I don't blame you for not trusting people. Daniel, welcome in. Tell a YouTuber to come to Periscope. No. We got to grow on the YouTube world. I got to grow on all the platforms. I can't just trust one platform. I gotta grow. I gotta keep growing. Thank you guys for the invite and the shares. So it's those big ideas. Can you enable Super Chat, please? I cannot enable Super Chat yet. I have to have 1,000 followers on YouTube in order to enable Super Chat. That was something I was looking at. You don't like centralized information? I don't like centralized anything. The only thing I like centralized is my authority, and that's centralized to me. That beard needs scams. I appreciate it. I do. I should. I'll figure out how I can actually post my PayPal on YouTube if you want to throw it that way. I do also have a Patreon. That is true. If you want to find me on Patreon, I'm starting to upload the videos there as well. Get you a pair following huge and tell us to go to YouTube. Works like a charm. You guys need to be going over onto YouTube. You guys need to at least follow it and help me out. I don't know. I'm almost at 1,600. I'm almost at 1,600 on Periscope. It's growing. We're continuing slowly but surely. 1594 right now. We're 6 away. So if you guys haven't hit the follow button on Periscope, get me up to 1,600. Help a brother out. Help a beard out. Help the truth out. Help out. That would be much appreciated. It's always good. Same name on YouTube. Yes, ma'am. I hope you're a ma'am. If you're not, yes, sir. Whichever way. What's the YouTube handle? It is Mr. Murica, the Bearded Truth. There's no punctuation at all. Just hop on over there, join in, say hi on YouTube land. Make sure you guys. Okay, yes, ma'am. Perfect. I was hoping I was getting it. Make sure you guys drop a like on there, subscribe to the page, and also hit the notification bell. Question: you ever been in the military? Your mind is sharp. Yes, I was. I was a nuclear submariner. So I was a mechanic on a nuclear-powered submarine. I worked on the reactor and the auxiliary systems as well. If you don't, Kimmy, I'm gonna be upset. That is definitely one aspect of why I do have a sharp mind. That's kind of the justification on my work ethic. Another, I don't know, however, Mr. Murica, Murica. Another thing, I was absolutely blessed. I have an extremely high IQ. I've been looking a lot more into the IQ thing lately. I've taken 5 IQ tests, 5 legit ones, and yeah, I was top 10%. Steiny, welcome. And so I was 143 to 148. 140 is generally the cutoff for genius, so I just made it. You don't say Submariner right? I say Submariner right. I say Submariner properly. What test do you use? I know Briggs-Meyer just popped in my head. I know that's the 4-letter one. Let me look it up. Because as soon as I see it, it was a 2-word one. Stanford Bennett. Uh-oh, I just lost chat. PMS, welcome. Carol, thank you. Only actual Submariners say Submariner. Yes, only actual Submariners say that. Kimmy, you can argue with the vernacular all you'd like. So I do have to attribute the IQ thing to helping me out. I'm also an INTJ for those who follow the Briggs-Meyer thing. So intuitive. I'm judgmental. I have gotten INTP before, so entrepreneur aspect. It's just that, and always accepting in more information. I can't even tell you how many hours of podcast I've listened to just this morning. If it was comparative to normal speed, I'm listening at INTJs are super rare. I'm TPP. I'm constantly taking in information, and I think that's important. For anyone who wants to grow, take in as much information as you can. Don't let your bias pull you away. I mean, one person that people would really be surprised about that I listen to is actually Mark Levin's Inside Scoop. He's a progressive. And that's fine. Come to my next go for proper enunciation tips. All right, I appreciate it. But he's a constitutional lawyer, and he talks about it from a progressive point of view. That's important to me. I go and listen to both sides. I get a better arguments. I get a better understanding of the situation. I don't allow people to straw man it by doing so. So it's quite a bit of work, and thankfully now I'm working in a place that is intelligent people that I work with. Marianne, welcome. Thank you. So I work with a lot of intelligent people. I just recently got a job manufacturing suppressors for firearms. So, if you guys ever thought that I might not be pro Second Amendment, I'm literally building things to put on the ends of guns. But everyone there actually enjoys conversations. And one of the first days I was asked the question, what is taxation? What is taxation? That was my first question that some of the people were asking me. I was like, oh, taxation is extortion. They're like, oh my word. I thought you were going to say theft. But, it's things like that where I can talk with them, and they're keeping up a little bit with the current events. Some of them are a little bit older than me. And so being able to have those conversations with others really keeps you on your toes, because then you're getting more insight, as opposed to sitting around here on Periscope where I don't actually follow people. I follow people, but I don't go into their scopes enough. I'm extremely busy, 2 jobs, running this Periscope, actually on the board for 2 different corporations, or not corporations, 2 different foundations, about to be moving in the next week. Like, I've got so many things going on, so I'm not able to follow up with everybody and stay in tuned with the conversation. So I'm slacking on that, but so it's nice to have that a little bit of comfort there to help me out. It's just a lot of things that really piece together to make it better. Enunciate your words. My bad. I will enunciate. I will try to enunciate more goodly. So it's. I appreciate the compliment, Herman. I really do. I'm glad that you like it. Bearded ass pain. I like it. Okay. And so that's. It's good that I that others are respecting that and seeing that. It's always nice. Some days it's a struggle on Periscope to get 300 viewers, 200 viewers. Other days I'm getting 500, 600. And it's just like, I don't understand, like, what am I doing wrong? And I know most of the time it's a Friday night, 7 p.m. and you've got 3 or 4 other big broadcasters going on that have been doing this for years. And meanwhile, we're just over a year and a half. We're just over a year and a half of broadcasting, and the amount of growth that we've gone through already. Now, I will say that Mr. Daniel Barron there, I believe we both started around the same time. And Mr. Daniel Barron is growing at an astronomical rate compared to me, because Daniel Barron is goodlier at hooking himself up with the goodly people and getting he's surrounding himself with dinosaurs in some aspects. No no disrespect on that, but with these massive people, and they come in and they're just like, yep, got you with the share. That's another 10,000 viewers. That's another 100,000 viewers. That's another 10 million viewers. And Daniel's like, what's up, guys? You guys want jokes? I got jokes. You guys want a round of applause? So it's beautiful to see Daniel growing like that. It's beautiful to see people growing, and I'm excited. I want to thank you guys for everyone who's joined in on these discussions. That's really made support. You guys make this truly worthwhile for me. You guys have no idea. There's times in which I want to give up. There's times in which I want to. No, I'm not talking about my closer. There's times in which I want to give up, when I don't want to do this anymore, when I think it's all for naught, that I won't actually have any growth. And you guys keep me coming back. So thank you. With smarter people, that can spell goodly. It's always fun to make fun of typos, but I want to say thank you to you guys. It means a lot to me, and you guys truly do give me a lot more support than I'm deserving of, and I don't know how to repay you other than continue on doing what I'm doing. I can't give you guys anything. I can't pay you all. I can't go out and shake your hands or do something nice as a gesture. And I want to, so I hope that me just continuing doing what I'm doing is enough for you guys. And I will continue to stand on my morals, stand on my principles, stand on my core convictions, and proudly say what is on my mind and how things are going. I will continue to do the research, and I will struggle day in and day out. Thank you. I appreciate it, Hermit. I like you very much. I appreciate that. I do plan on running for office. I do plan on it. We are working on it right now. Expecting 2024, 2028, somewhere in that time frame, I will be running for office. That will be a big day. It'll be a big time. I'm going to need as much help as possible. Oh, sweet. A younger you. I love it. I appreciate a libertarian point of view. I'm not. That's what's weird, right? Is not a lot of people respect the libertarian viewpoint. They say, "Look, you're a small group, therefore you're an extreme group," and my extreme is, I don't want you to hurt people, and I don't want you to take their stuff. I don't care what level of hierarchy you think that you are. I don't want you to take people's stuff, and I don't want you to hurt people. Respect the sovereignty of another. Yes, liberty for the win. Respect the sovereignty of everyone else. Respect the sovereignty of other nations. Respect the sovereignty of other states. And respect the sovereignty of other individuals, and you'll be fine. You're reaching all ages. Perfect. I'm glad that I'm reaching people all throughout the different generations. That's good. I didn't even want to know what a libertarian is. Yeah, no, and it's looked at in such a horrible light. And I think it really has become the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Thank you. You should do it, PMS. You're very smart. And really, honestly, Lynn, you're right. We are liberals. That's the thing about libertarians, is we are liberals. We are conservatives. We're just the best of both branches, right? I don't want a police state, so I'm going to criticize the police. So that's one liberal view. I am a conservative. I don't want the government regulating the market. I am the best of both worlds, and we can go down each little thing, and we can find out exactly which ones I'm a liberal on, which ones I'm a conservative on, and you'd be like, "Oh, these make sense." I don't think that the police are granted with some impenetrable shield because they wear a badge. I'm a constitutional conservative, and that's fine. Libertarians want to be left alone, and we want you to be left alone, and we want us to be left alone. Actual liberals is greater than fake liberals. Yeah. And I have a couple of buddies that are classical liberals, and that's fine, right? Classical liberals, fine. You want a bigger government than I want. I have a couple of friends that are anarchists. I'll be going back on the radio. Here's big news. I'll be going back on the radio third week of September, going back on the same radio station. If you guys want to tune in Saturday night, tomorrow night, go on to makethepointradio.com. You'll be able to check in 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. It'll be Swamp Fox Radio. I'll be tuning in. I'll be going on third week of September, going back on the radio, hitting the airwaves, hitting the cars, causing accidents, causing people to just lose their brains, and it'll be a grand time. But he's an anarchist. He's a great guy. He's well informed. I've had him on the show. We'll have him back, and we'll get him on YouTube as well. Shane's a fantastic guy. He wants a smaller government than I want. I have no problem with it because he's super consistent. He is super ideologically consistent. Free market can provide it better than anyone else. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with it. I don't want that. You old school liberal equals more freedom and less dictatorial. Yes, exactly. Right. Like Dave Rubin, classical liberal. I want a smaller government as well. Yeah. And what sucks is this was something I wanted to bring up during the show earlier, and now we've kind of digressed into a post-show discussion. Was that recently Rand Paul actually had an excerpt within one of the where he had a bill, and he actually brought it to the floor, and it got shot down. Cheryl, have him contact me. I'll get him into this. I'll actually see if he's a true anarchist or if he's like an anarcho-communist or something. And that was within that bill was, hey, let's defund Planned Parenthood. Conservatives, no. Why is smaller government better? Because when you have a smaller government, you have a bigger person. The individual is bigger. When you have the authority, when you have the decision making on your own, you're more responsible and you will be better. Yeah, Cheryl, I would love to have your son contact me. Now, I am worried because you are in SoCal and you don't see it that way. Name something a government can do that a free market cannot do without the force of government, and name something that a free market. If you can provide that first, we'll go further down into this discussion. I have libertarian leanings. A lot of people do. It's amazing, right? Because the conservative movement has actually shifted to the left, and because of that, libertarian is the next default. And so it may have been a conservative value 30, 50 years ago, but today it's now a libertarian value. I think a sizable government and personal choice can coexist just fine. What do you mean by a sizable government? Like a government that dictates healthcare, a government that dictates wages, a government that dictates the economy? I am actually I just recently joined in with the Libertarian Party. So I'm going to be an advocate on there. I am meeting up with the president of my counties. Sure, yes, on all those. So I disagree with you entirely, right? So we can look at all the different countries that have mandated healthcare or national healthcare, and we can see major issues with those. Because whenever the government decides that they're going to control these things, it doesn't work out for the best, right? The money that comes from taxation that goes to provide to other countries, which is inherent to any country that is extremely economically prosperous, such as America, right? That's money that's lost from the economy. That's money that would have been lost from the innovation and the growth of the economy. So you're doing the work out the best. Because here's the thing, right? Government is always reactive. It's never proactive. A market has to be proactive. It has to be proactive. If you are not sticking to the trends and watching things and seeing the way that things are turning, seeing the way that things are going, they're going to be quicker on the reactive, and they'll also be able to change up the settings, change up the views, change up the trends, and that's how they're going to be proactive. Government can never be proactive. You want to know why? Because it takes time in order for government to change anything. That's why government can never be proactive, right? A government says, look, here's a catastrophe. Here's a crisis. Here's an issue that came about. We have to solve this, right? When we knew about Hurricane Harvey, when we knew about all these hurricanes that recently hit us, right? We said, hey, look, within a week, we're going to get hit hard. We're going to get devastated. These are going to destroy states. This is going to destroy families. This is going to destroy the ability for people to live. And they tried to evacuate people. And what happened, right? Catastrophe hit. Hurricane comes through, plows through, destroys everything. And then the government goes, we still don't know how we're going to fund this. We still don't know how we're going to fund this. Child welfare, food stamp policies are proactive. No. They are not proactive. They're reactive, right? Because there's child welfare, and then they said, "All right, we gotta fix this. We have to solve this." They got involved with it. Food stamps, same thing. There were people that were hungry, and then the government said, "We're going to help those hungry people." Pro or reactive. Hawaii, come for the lava, stay for the hurricane. Oh, that's funny. So government has never once been proactive. Never once. You can't label anything. Anything you have, I can show you where the problem existed before the government came in. And the government will use those issues. They will use those and say, look, these are issues, and we are going to solve them. And so they justify themselves to grow. Every time. Right? 9/11 happened. What did the government say? The government said, look, we're going to have to destroy your Fourth Amendment. We're going to have to destroy your sovereignty as a person. We're going to have to destroy the protections that are afforded to you by the Fourth Amendment in the name of safety, in the name of the Patriot Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, right? And these things, right? And so they've grown themselves in order to say, we're doing this in your best interest. This is what government does routinely. Every time there's a problem, they say, what do you mean by proactive, and why is that better than reactive? Because reactive means, right, the longer that something is reactive. So you have, let's say, time X, or time is equal to 0, right? From the time 0 happens, that's when the catastrophe hits. That's when the hurricane hits. And then now the reactive means that plus whatever. So if it takes 2 weeks, if it takes 2 months, if it takes 2 years, that amount of reactivity, that time that it takes for them to react is what's bad. When you're proactive, right, you can see things shifting. You can see things changing. You go, hey, woo, everybody's pulling out right now. Instead of waiting for the weeks, instead of waiting for our entire company to collapse, we should do something now. And so that's not proactive, but that is being, they're more capable of being more reactive because it doesn't take Congress to get together to make this thing. Proactive would be, hey, look, we don't have a fire right now. We should have fire insurance, right? Government can't really do that. Government just says, look, we're going to pay for it, and then we're going to take more money from you later. So even then, it's reactive versus proactive. We're going to spend the money now, and we'll collect it later. If you don't believe that, $21 trillion in debt right now. We're going to take the money and spend it now, and we'll get it later. So people in government that decide policies outside of Congress can't be proactive. What? So people in government that decide policies outside of Congress can't be what? That doesn't make sense to me. I should do Patriot Act. Yes, absolutely. Y'all been to the DMV? That's government for y'all. Yes, exactly. Reactive is also usually knee-jerk, which means it's not well thought out. Another school got shot up. What are we going to do? We're going to ban guns. We're going to ban guns. We're going to ban guns. Was it a gun's fault, or was it a person's fault? It was a gun's fault. Gun's fault. We got to blame the guns. Oh, it found out that this guy was actually, the FBI was looking at this guy and didn't ever do anything. It's the gun's fault. It's the gun's fault. We got to do it with good guns. Right? It's a reactive. What if he had a knife? Exactly. What if he had a knife? Oh, knife. No, of course not. Then it's silence. Radio silence. Nobody cares. It's a knife. Nobody cares. It's a car. Nobody cares. Less people killed? Incorrect. So in China, there was actually an attack on China. In China, they had a group of 3 guys with knives. They killed 87 people. 87 people by knives. Not accurate. In London, plenty of knife attacks have happened. It doesn't save more people's lives. Just because it takes a little more effort in order to kill somebody doesn't mean that you're inherently saving lives. It's a fallacy. That's false. And also in accordance with a CDC study in 2014, between 500,000 and 3 million lives are saved each year, far surpassing the amount of lives that are taken by guns each year. I am telling you that a knife is just as dangerous as a gun. A knife is just as dangerous as a gun. Because you want to know why? Because they both are absolutely equal. Because they both are tools. They both are just tools. My gun that I have in this house has killed exactly 0 people. It has fired multiple thousands of rounds. Not a single person has ever been hurt. I mean, I may have burned myself on one of the shell casings, but that's it. But that's it, right? And that CDC study, that was very important for you. I would like for you to acknowledge at least that. CDC study in 2014, between 500,000 and 3 million lives are saved each year with the use of a defensive gun. Is that not a problem for you? Would you rather worry about the 17,000 lives that are taken from homicide each year? Their lives are much more important than the 500,000 to 3 million lives. So if you want to talk about values, if you want to talk about actual lives being saved, there's a large contrast and difference. You can feel free to go look up that study. You might have to pay for it now. I think they've put it behind a paywall, but you can still find the study. Good old government. You go ahead and look into the study of that and figure out why Obama wouldn't stop that right quick. How dare you find out how many lives are saved? How dare you find statistics when I was trying to find a negative, and you found it in a positive way? Oh, horrible. No more gun studies from the CDC. And then now the left is outraged about it. Amazing, right? You guys didn't pay attention to see who actually stopped that? You didn't see who blocked that? It's cool. But it's okay, right? Because facts don't matter anymore, right? Statistics don't matter. Studies don't matter. Guns are bad. Guns are bad. Except for the fact that, even within the constraints of what the founding fathers created, and this is actually a beautiful conversation in which we can talk about the founding of our country. Why was the Second Amendment so important to the founding fathers? Why was it written in a way that it was, right? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yeah, please do. The right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Why was that? Because one, they didn't want a tyrannical government. If the populace is armed, the government can never take over. Two, because the right of the people to be able to defend themselves is not only a right protected by the Constitution, but it is a natural right for somebody to be able to protect themselves, to protect their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And three, the reason for it to not be infringed was the justification on which the military shall never be able to have a stronger arsenal than what the American populace has. Right? So those three grounds are justification on never once going against the Second Amendment or imparting laws against the American populace on what type of guns and the number of guns or how they obtain their guns. It should never be infringed upon. That's why it's very clearly written, shall not be infringed. Wasn't should not be infringed. Should not could be infringed on a good justification. It depends on if there's a school shooter or not. No, shall not be infringed. Very important. James Madison. Madison wrote a letter to pirates, or not to pirates, to sailors. And he said, look, if you guys want to defend yourselves, and you guys, well, they asked, and they were like, hey, can we get cannons? And he says, yes, Second Amendment. Get your cannons. Get you some. Get you some. Get you a cannon. Shoot up them pirates. They're coming after you. If they're coming after your property, take them out. Do what you got to do. That's good. Yes, 223 is very tiny. It's amazing. I don't even make silencers that small. Well, we kind of do, but we make a 22. We do make a 22 silencer, so that's fine. Thank you. It's so that entire gun debacle, it's just riddled with false rhetoric, hyperbolic thoughts, and the idea that somehow it is the inanimate object's fault and not the person behind its fault. Let's have an honest conversation about the culture that we have. Let's have an honest conversation about why in 5% of the counties, 50% of the murders occur. Why is it so centralized? Why is it happening in such a small amount of the country in such a vastly large population-wise? Because the value of life has been disregarded. How do we get the value of life back? By growing the government? No, the government doesn't care about your life. That's not going to help you. By restoring the people the ability to live free. But with that, I will see you guys Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I am Mr. Murica, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. Thank you guys for joining in. Please do go on the Facebook or on the YouTube page, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell for the notifications. Join over there and help out. I appreciate it so much. You guys are all fantastic. Thank you guys for sharing your Friday night with me. Hope you guys all enjoy it. Make sure you guys do not drink and drive. Ride with those who do. You have family and friends who love you and care about you deeply, and they want you getting safe and sound back here Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me, Mr. Murica, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. Have a great night.